Okay, so I've been covering a lot of the Eliza Blue Twitter saga lately, and while I'm sure we haven't reached the story's ultimate conclusion, I feel like it's a good time to take a breather and switch topics. Also, as a side note, I want to just take a minute and thank each and every one of you for the love that you've shown my channel recently. At the end of 2022, I was sitting a little over 100 subscribers, and here I am a month later, just over 500. I'm humbled and incredibly grateful. I couldn't do this without all of your support, so once again, thank you. Alright, with that being said, let's talk about Harry Potter, transgenderism, and so-called TERFs, or trans-exclusionary radical feminists. J.K. Rowling, the author and creator of the Harry Potter book series, has long found herself at the mercy of extremism. In 2001, the Alamogordo Christ Community Church in New Mexico burned hundreds of copies of the Harry Potter books. Jack Brock, leader of the church, said the books were an abomination because they inspired children to study the occult. It didn't matter that J.K. Rowling professed her own Christian faith or that many Christians believed the books promoted traditional biblical values. Radical fundamentalists were eager to denounce the book series as satanic, and into the fire they went. As an aside, I've never read the books or watched the films. I was more interested in hobbits, wizards, and elves, and way less interested in little boys and girls riding broomsticks and playing pranks on each other. That being said, I can even remember my own mother denouncing Harry Potter as evil because of its use of witchcraft. But for some reason, it was okay for Gandalf to use magic, I don't know, don't ask. Ironically, J.K. Rowling would have the last laugh, because if you buy her books to use as nothing more than toilet paper, you're still funneling money into her Scrooge McDuck-sized bank account, which is not an exaggeration. Her current net worth is in the ballpark of $1 billion. Pretty impressive when you consider the fact that when she wrote the original stories, she was a single mom, recently moved home to the UK from Portugal, where she had originally met and then later divorced her abusive husband. She went on to be destitute, suicidal, and living on government assistance before finally getting her first book published in the June of 1997. The rest is now history. Harry Potter is one of the best-selling, most beloved book series of all time, boasting 11 film adaptations between the original stories and their spin-offs. There's even a Wizarding World area of Universal Studios Orlando. Fans of the series have never had more ways to read, watch, or play with their beloved franchise. Alright, so now we're all caught up on who J.K. Rowling is. Let's talk about why it matters. Despite her status as a liberal elitist, the criticisms of this successful, progressive, feminist author would only get more extreme. Rowling's public defense of a woman named Maya Forstater back in 2019 has left Rowling as persona non grata among transgender activists, who have dubbed her with the moniker of being a transphobe. Maya Forstater is a woman that lost her job as a tax consultant for what was perceived to be a, quote, transphobic tweet. Elsewhere, boneheaded talk show host Jon Stewart has gone on to imply that Harry Potter is somehow anti-Semitic due to its portrayal of stereotypically Jewish people. The only issue is they aren't Jewish, they're goblins. I doubt many people took Jon Stewart seriously, but nevertheless, the hatred for Rowling would only intensify with time. There are plenty of death threats and threats of violence against Rowling that have been cataloged and recorded, thanks to the efforts of many people like DataRacer117 on Twitter. Rowling, to her credit, has never backed down from her stance that physiology trumps so-called gender identity. Despite the Twitter mob and Tumblrites coming out of the woodwork to cancel her, it has failed spectacularly. Best example would be the lackluster attempt at boycotting the upcoming Harry Potter game, Hogwarts Legacy. Despite having a full week left till its release, this game has already skyrocketed to the top of the charts for pre-ordered games, as well as being the most wishlisted game on Steam. Nevertheless, transgender activists and left-wing ideologues have tried to cancel this game for the perceived crime of being associated with J.K. Rowling, even if only in name. So-called gaming journalists have done their best to amplify this manufactured outrage online, with certain reactionaries going so far as to say that this game will actually result in the death of transgender people in real life. Literally, I wish I was joking about this. The levels of insanity that these activists have achieved is nothing short of comical. The issue comes down to this. J.K. Rowling and most people living in reality believe that there are only two genders, and as such we need to respect the rights and privacy of both sexes. This kind of rational logic doesn't sit well with the blue-haired crowd, many of whom have been duped into believing that some hormone replacement therapy and a few surgeries can cure all of life's issues. It's haram to go against this way of thinking, as we see time and time again. Limited Run, a distributor of rare games, was pressured into firing a community manager simply because of who she followed on Twitter, and for a tweet similar to ones that got Rowling in hot water. What was the tweet? That people with a penis don't belong in women's restrooms, a statement that 20 years ago would have been common sense. The reality is that we are approaching an impassable obstacle, one that we can no longer avoid. We used to be a society that protected the most vulnerable and innocent, namely women and children. Now we sacrifice women's rights and safety at the altar of inclusion and equity. Biological men can compete in women's sports and can enter women's spaces under the umbrella of inclusivity. Trust me, I know there's going to be someone out there that sees this video and thinks that transgenderism as a way to access female-only spaces is just another right-wing conspiracy theory. I wish that were the case, I really do. There are many well-documented instances of girls getting assaulted in school bathrooms and locker rooms, of women in female-only prisons getting violated and impregnated by transgender women. Ezra Miller, the actor known for his role as the Flash, has hidden behind his non-binary status to avoid facing consequences for multiple criminal acts, not the least of which were accusations of him grooming a young child. We have seen a massive push by governments and the entertainment industry as a whole to indoctrinate children with LGBTQIA+ propaganda. Twitch streamers like Keffals use their massive platform to alienate children from their parents and even offer to secretly send them hormone replacement drugs. Games like Call of Duty, Apex Legends, even Among Us are filled with pride banners, pride badges, gay and trans characters, etc. Apps like TikTok and YouTube Kids heavily promote gender nonconformism and alternative lifestyles. And somehow drag queens, a highly exaggerated performance of female sexuality, is somehow something that children need to be exposed to. Now, even games like The Sims, a very well-established franchise, have recently added cosmetic updates to their newest game to include chest scars for people who want a, quote, trans-identifying character. This wouldn't even be as big of a deal, except gay and trans people have typically made up an extreme minority of society. That is rapidly changing. We are seeing a massive influx of children, teens, and people in their young 20s being diagnosed with rapid onset gender dysphoria. People who had no previous inclination to think that they were born in the wrong body are getting fast-tracked into irreversible surgeries, being turned into lifelong patients due to diagnoses by ideologically possessed psychologists. What's worse, many of the young girls and boys that have been diagnosed as trans are in actuality suffering from other mental conditions, many of them being autistic. This is why the pushback against, quote, pride has been gaining traction, especially among gay people. What used to be a push for acceptance has now become a tyrannical theology. I personally believe there are reasons why our governments and institutions are pushing this new religion on us. I'm sure I'll be labeled as a tinfoil hat wearer for saying it out loud, but the same people that want us to stop traveling, eat the bugs, and live in pods are also pushing this ideology that destroys young people's ability to reproduce or have any chance at a healthy traditional lifestyle. Disrupting the nuclear family is the fastest way to fracture a society. But I digress. The stories that are coming out from detransitioners are heartbreaking and infuriating, knowing that these young, mentally disturbed individuals trusted their parents, psychologists, and medical experts to protect them, but were instead sacrificed on the altar of diversity, equity, and inclusion. The lawsuits that we will see in the coming years will be extremely eye-opening. I just wish more had been done to prevent this from happening in the first place. Sadly, it's too little too late. Thanks again for all the support, and if you found this video to be informative or compelling, please leave a like and subscribe. Thanks for watching. Until next time.